Hello and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another one of CPDSO's weekly webinars. I'm happy to greet you all today. Today we have an amazing session lined up for you all, making ideas happen, pivoting and building out your training portfolio. I do have with me today, as you can see on the video, we've got Joe Mason with us, and we've got Amanda Rosewarne back with us this week as well. Again, if everyone, when you enter the room, I'm still getting a lot of people coming through into the room. When you do come in, please do turn off your cameras and make sure that you're muted. You will be muted automatically, but please do turn off your cameras as well for me, please. It will be much appreciated. Like I say, it will stop me from having to come over and do it all manually. So please do get those off for me. Moving forward onto the housekeeping. So yes, like I said, please do take off those cameras because that is one of our housekeeping rules. Next would be the chat. So we are going to have the chat open. We do want you guys to obviously use the chat, but please do use it responsibly. Mainly, what we want to see in the chat is questions. So questions on today's topic would be preferential, obviously. If you do have any other comments, for example, statements like a great point, or anything just out of encouragement, feel free to use the chat for that as well. More than happy to see those comments coming through too. So please do use the chat responsibly. Again, just another little weather update on my side. It was raining a bit. It was looking a bit miserable before, but now it's looking to get, the sun's looking to come out a bit now that we're starting this webinar. So hopefully it should be a nice one coming through for you guys. Please do, like I said, use the chat responsibly. We've got a lot of people coming in. We've currently got 120 people in the room. So please do use that chat responsibly. So we've got all the questions there ready for the Q&A. Right, so again, just another formality. We're just gonna go through a couple of polls quickly. So I'm gonna launch a poll for you all just now. You'll see it coming up on your screen. Please do just answer it as fast as possible so we can move along quite swiftly. So the first question, just to find out your status with us, are you a member or a non-member? If we can get those answers in. And we also just want to find out how often and how much you're engaging with these webinars, because we do want to really obviously make sure that they are they're hitting the mark for you all. So please do just let us know how many webinars you've been to and what is your current status with us. I'm going to give you guys 10 more seconds on that one. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thank you very much, guys. Got one more poll for you before you move forward. And this one's just about what you would like us to see speaking about in the coming weeks. We've got some great topics here. So please do read carefully and just make a selection. So we've got mental health implications of COVID and returning to work. So some places are starting to open up the doors again and people are getting back into work. So we're just going to be looking at the implications of that. How to win new business with digital etiquette, which is a new term, digital etiquette to me. So yeah, that should be a really interesting one as well. New normal leadership paradigm shift, and understanding and using SEO to drive traffic. So those are your options. Guys, I can still see a few videos on. If you can, please just turn those off for me. It will be much appreciated because I am going to have to do a lot of manual labor once I stop talking, if you do not. So please do turn those off for me. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Round up that poll now. Thank you guys for contributing to those. Right, moving forward, like I said, we do have Amanda with us today back.
Hi everybody, lovely to see you all.
And I'm just gonna pass it over to her now to do a quick talk about making ideas happen. So please, Amanda, take it away.
Thank you. Hi everybody, thank you for all joining the session this afternoon. It's great to have so many of you on here. And we're delighted to welcome Joe as well to talk through how we can make great ideas happen. So I've not got any slides today. I'm just going to talk to you for 5 minutes or so about some of the things that I've seen happen within the CPDSO community and sort of more broadly across society, as you know, we've all experienced and kind of walked this journey together through what's been COVID-19. I know when we delivered a webinar, a couple of weeks back, and we talked about the word unprecedented, and I talked about what the definition is, because these new terminologies, unprecedented, new normal, lockdown, self-isolation, you know, these were not terms that we were familiar with last year, and we have entered this whole new world. And I think the biggest thing is that it has been, and we were just saying this just before the webinar started, it has been the most surreal, scary, and, you know, huge experience for all of us. It's probably going to be one of the biggest things that we will live through in our lifetime. We talked about, again, a couple of sessions back, about, you know, the only real similar thing that many of us have experienced on this scale was 9/11 and the kind of scariness of it all. But for those of us that have grandparents or great-grandparents that lived through World War II, you know, we're now starting to kind of understand, well, you know, this is the kind of realities that they faced. Obviously, we're not being sent off to exact war, but we do have this kind of silent enemy that's coronavirus. So what's happened? Well, it's thrown everything in the air. It's just made us have to think through our businesses, think about our lives, and completely rejig. And as you know, CPD Standards has started running and then has developed this weekly kind of webinar session to just talk through the different themes and things that are happening. So as I said, I've seen some really amazing things within the community where people have very cleverly pivoted their businesses. So just this morning, I was lucky enough to attend a virtual graduation. And one of our members, Joanne Sweeney, who runs a digital marketing qualification in Ireland, rather than having a graduation ceremony, because obviously we can't do that at the moment, she ran it as a virtual session. And it was really, really popular. And it was a great way to recognise people that had undertaken her course online over the last year or so, and kind of give them some support and recognition. So for those of you that haven't done it, but you have not sort of thought about it, a great way, I think, to engage with your clients and looking at the reactions of what was happening this morning would be to hold a 30-minute to an hour session for anybody who's come to the end of their course or training or online learning that they're doing with you, whereby you recognise every individual with one slide and talk about what they've done and what they've achieved. And that's just a really lovely way to connect with your clients. So that was kind of really interesting to attend this morning. And of course, it doesn't need to be the word graduation. It could just be your certificate ceremony. It could be your awards. You know, there's all sorts of different kind of spins that you can put on that. And if you'd like us to help or make any suggestions, then by all means, drop Daniel and I an email. Okay, so just looking at my notes, what else have we seen? We've seen lots and lots and lots of companies pivot to online training. Pivot has been the top word. We have seen great face-to-face training being kind of wrapped up and spun around and delivered as live streaming sessions, webinar sessions. We've got a lot of providers now working on standalone e-learning courses that will kind of continue to build out the kind of infrastructure of their business. And I think, you know, one of the key things we have to keep in mind is, you know, we're going through this kind of really crazy sort of working environment, which we're all slowly getting used to. I mean, I'm certainly getting used to working from home and remotely now. But it is about keeping yourselves organised. And I have to say, I have talked to a couple of providers who have got, amazing ideas, and they're doing some great things. But, we've talked through about the fact that, you kind of need to prioritise. We can't start doing lots of different things in lots of different ways. In terms of building a webinar, doing weekly newsletters, So my advice there is just don't spread yourself too thin. Billionaires who have shared their expertise, and some of the articles that are on Forbes about how, people have gone from being a person on the street to being a multimillionaire or a billionaire. The one skill they have and have honed is focus, and focus on one idea. You only have to be really, really, really good at one thing, just like an athlete. So, keep that in mind. Of course, build up your ideas portfolio, build up that stock, get yourself in the most creative space possible. But if you just focus on one, maybe two things, then that is really what's going to make those ideas happen for you. So that's just a couple of sort of hints and tips from me. So handing back to Daniel now, and looking forward to Joe's session.
Thank you, Amanda.
That's all right.
Hey everyone. Thank you for starting to put stuff into the chat. I'm seeing a few things in there. Please, guys, if you can stop sharing LinkedIn, because we do want to keep that chat clear, like I said. If you could stop sharing those LinkedIn profiles, because we do want to keep the chat clear for questions and comments regarding today's topic. We will actually have an opportunity, or we will actually have a session in the future, which will have more opportunities for you all to talk to each other. So watch out for that coming soon. But this one, we do want to kind of focus on the topic at hand. Right, so today we've got Jo with us. Like I've mentioned, she's going to be taking us forward for the next 45 minutes. And then we're going to go into a Q&A session after that. There is going to be recordings and the slides available after this. So please, again, you don't need to use the chat for that either. We will be sending it out to everyone that is on this webinar and everyone that signed up as well. So if you do have to drop off early, we will be sending you out the full recording and those slides as well. And in the slides, there's going to be a few links to other relevant resources too. So yes, that's what we've got coming up today. And now we have Jo. So Jo, I've met Jo in person, and that was a great pleasure. I went up to Lincolnshire where she's based, and it was a fantastic experience. She's an amazing lady, I must say.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't say that often. I must say, I was really impressed with Jo. I really liked my time with her. So I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy your time today. She's a champion for STEM, for women in STEM. So that's science, technology, and engineering, mathematics, for those who did not know. It's a very left brain. Am I right in saying that, Jo? It's a left brain kind of thing. But Jo is she actually benefits from being able to engage both sides of her brain, because she's actually really creative as well. So I'm sure she's going to draw on both of those skill sets today for you in this presentation. Jo, just a bit about her history. She's educated to a doctorate level, and she's also gone into the University of Life, as she puts it, which is the police. I'm sure other people put it like that as well. But this is the University of Life, and she did a great stint in the University of Life with the police, and she was on the crime scene investigations unit. So those are the people that go in and do all of the kind of the dusting down, and they check after deaths. I believe that's right, isn't it?
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. So really serious stuff. And she went into teaching forensic science in higher education, and then she's moved on now, and she's become an entrepreneurial type, and she's currently doing coaching and mentoring, leadership and management. She's done a TEDx talk before, and she's a
TEDx speaker coach.
TEDx speaker coach.
Coaching, yeah.
Coaching, sorry. TEDx speaker coaching, and as a big STEM ambassador. So without further ado, I'm going to put you into the very capable hands of Joe, who's going to be taking us forward for the next 45 minutes. Thank you, Joe. Over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. What a lovely intro. I think we agreed 20 quid, was it?
Nice, the rate's gone up. It's 50 now.
50. Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you everybody for joining us for this. Some great numbers there. I'm not actually going to be reinventing the wheel here. You guys are really experienced and knowledgeable around sort of training and coaching, for those of you that do coaching as well, but hopefully I'll give you some ideas to sort of formalize the process so you can actually structure your thinking. Hopefully there'll be a few little nuggets in there as well. But yeah, it's about putting a structure to the process so that you can actually move forward, gather all together those ideas that you've got, and know what to do with them. So let's see if we can get the slides to move. There we go. Making ideas happen, pivoting and building out your training portfolio. So what we're going to look at today, I'm first going to just talk about a case study, because I, like probably the vast majority of yourselves, had a series of face-to-face workshops. It was actually within an academic setting, and the university came and said, we need these transforming online. And it was a case of, right, okay, not done this before, how are we going to do this? So I'll take you through the steps involved, the priorities, things needed to think about, just so that you can see, I guess, how to actually move forward. So you know you've already got your face-to-face sessions, what you need to be thinking about to take those forward, to transform them online. So a little bit of case study there. We're there going to look at actual ideas generation, and we're going to be looking at both the external sources of inspiration and information. And again, I'm probably not going to be teaching you to suck eggs with this. It's more of a, okay, let's gather together and think about how we can get some structure to your thinking processes. And if there's a little nugget in there that you can take away that's new, all well and good. But also we're going to be looking internally where you can leverage your own brain power to come up with new sources of inspiration from within inside. So hopefully that'll be interesting for you. And then it's a case of, you've got all these ideas, what are you going to do with them? How do you then shape them and develop them in order to sort of take them forward and on that route to market? So hopefully those three aspects will give you a little bit of a taster. You'll be raring to go at the end, all being well. And I'll also be signposting some resources that CPD Standards Office actually provide that I've found to be incredibly useful during this journey for me. So you can tap into those and help you on your own journeys. So I think we've got a poll to start with. If you would be so kind, Daniel. So first one, if I could ask you, what brings you to join this session? So do you need to transfer your face-to-face sessions, but you're not sure how to go about it? You're expanding your existing portfolio and need some inspiration. You know what you want to offer, but don't know how to go about progressing it. And you're just generally interested. So which one are you closest to? Oh, we've got a lovely spread there. A few more. Maybe we've got a few people that don't fit into those categories. Okay. We'll end that one there. It was pretty much an even spread, actually. roughly about 25% across each, really interesting. Very interestingly. Okay, so and my slide seems to have stuck. There we go. There we go. So that was that poll. There we go. So let's have a look at this case study. So like I said, I had a series of 3-hour interactive workshops within the academic environment, and we were approached, need to transform this online. How do we go about doing it? Because we've not done that before. So the first thing to be aware of, there we go. It's not like for like. So this wasn't going to be transforming 3-hour workshop into a 3-hour webinar. People haven't got the attention span. The content is very different. The level of engagement is very different. So just to be aware to start off with, it's not like for like. Next one. So flipped classroom, you probably heard of it. What does it mean? It's about actually getting the delegates to do some work either up front or afterwards. So taking a big chunk out of what your existing workshop would include and transforming that into another sort of format. So then you have the decision around what do you keep included and what do you actually pull out and transform into that other format. And what we did for those opportunities for reflection, where the delegate would really benefit from some sort of deep thinking, took those out and created workbooks. We actually had a pre-session workbook and a post-session workbook. And where information could be obtained by that delegate actually doing that work ahead of time in order for the actual session to have that added value of the delegates all being at a particular knowledge level. So only include what's absolutely necessary for that session. Take out whatever opportunities for reflective work and to align the knowledge base ahead of time. And we had a workbook and we used Canva. It's software that you can use to create workbooks quite professionally. You can also in those workbooks add opportunities for sort of looking at YouTube videos, things like that. So you can put activities in there, polls, surveys. So you can really lift out things that you don't really need that engagement for. And you've got that flipped classroom opportunity, and you've got that level engagement. You know where everybody is at the beginning of the session, and you can then deliver that really important contribution in that session. That's flipped classroom. Next one, keep it simple. This has got to be the key, actually. Remember that your slides are a visual aid only. So you don't want reams and reams and reams of text on there. Don't forget, you bear in mind accessibility for people with learning or reading disabilities or other sort of hearing disabilities. Make them attractive. Hopefully you're finding my slides nice and attractive today. And within that, think about your branding as well. You can make sure that your branding comes across in the slides. Keep them very, very simple. The main thing about having a really simple set of slides or visual aids is you've got flexibility. There will be tech issues, guaranteed. if you're working cross platforms, if you've got sort of Macs and Windows, sometimes the way, say, PowerPoint has been created, it doesn't work the same way. So always have a plan B ready, be prepared and practice. But if you keep it simple enough, you can add that degree of flexibility, and that's what's really important, because you can get a really nice slick session. And also, by keeping it simple and having that flexibility, you can adjust the time. You can include things, exclude things, depending on how the time is going. So also make it attractive, but be very careful about the image that you're appearing as and what's in the background of you. What you don't want is people distracted by what's going on in the background. Certainly if there's somebody's got bookshelves behind them, I'm gone. So be very careful how you come across on screen and the background that you've got behind you. Yes, and here there was a really great webinar from the CPD Standards Office. This is one of the links that we're going to give at the end. Actually, how to present for these kinds of webinars, really sort of engaging with the audience. So we'll have a link to that. That's something I'm signposting forward. But yeah, simple is the word. Keep it simple. You don't want a huge amount of information on the screen. Next one, audience. Who is your audience? Now, you might not know this ahead of time. You can ask the question, you know, who are they? What's their background? What's their knowledge base? What are their expectations? What are they wanting out of the session? You can ask the question ahead of time. You might know if it's something that you're delivering off your own business, but also if you don't know, you can use the sort of facilities within the sort of software. So do that like we did at the beginning, just before. Ask, where is everybody on this journey? It helps you, if you've got that flexibility built in, it helps you be able to tailor the delivery so that you can, you know, this was an even spread for everybody. So I can sort of gauge it in terms of which input I put on different sections. But if a lot of people wanted to know about the steps involved in this transformation, I could have sort of made that a little bit longer. So know your audience. If you don't know ahead of time, you can use sort of polling during the session to gauge that, but it's really useful to be able to tailor the session. So what are their expectations? If it's an academic delivery, so it might be heavily content loaded, they need the particular information that you're going to share. That's sort of a different situation to if it's more of a marketing sales thing for your own business, you're just sort of showcasing the business, which is different again if it's just sort of information. So think about what the expectations of your audience are. What are they wanting out of this? What are they expecting? What is the purpose of the session? And be very clear about that. What is the point of you doing this? What are they going to get out of it? What do you want out of it? And then also think in terms of the learning style, thinking style of your audience. You will have introverts and extroverts. The extroverts will be probably chatting away on the chat and playing with all the buttons, but remember, you might have introverts, or you will have introverts, because it's roughly about sort of 40 to 50% of the population that actually just want to sit back and don't necessarily want to engage, and that's absolutely fine. They're deeply reflective, and it might be that they're just there to absorb and think about it later. So, you know, encourage involvement, but also respect and understand that some people are just there to sort of absorb as well. So think about the learning styles. And if you've got activities, just bear that in mind as well. So sometimes you might just want to get people to think rather than actually engage. Right. Also, I guess it's kind of important, the level of engagement you can adjust according to how many actual delegates you've got. So if you've got a huge number that's going to be quite difficult to manage, it might be that you kind of front load it a little bit like this. If you've got really, really small numbers, you can actually interact a lot more and actually use the chat box with them. Whereas in this sort of kind of big numbers, you might want to kind of just pull out some summary. But yeah, numbers in terms of how many people you're expecting. If you've got that degree of flexibility, you can adjust your level of engagement accordingly. Right, next one. I talked about interactivity. You want to make sure that you interact with your audience, because it's a very, very different experience, as I'm sure you've found yourselves. You can't read body language very easily. You can't keep an eye on everybody's body language. So, but there is facilities on, depending which platforms you use. You've got obviously a range of platforms. We've got Zoom today. You've got all sorts of facilities to be able to interact. So we use the poll today. You've got the hands up voting. I think you've got reactions there. You can actually interact with the audience lots of different ways. Comments box, like we've talked about. There's breakout rooms. You can use those if you've got a bit of a longer session. But yeah, it really is dictated by the platform you use. But interacting with the audience, bearing in mind you've got those different learning styles, really helps to the audience to sort of connect and have a bit more of a realistic experience. Okay, next one. Engagement, right. So 3-hour interactive workshops face-to-face. How do you then convert that? So you don't want a huge long session. It's not like for like, as we said. So you want to be, it's roughly about, I think the research is showing it's roughly about 20 minutes of engagement before people are actually wanting a little bit of a change. So which is why we input sort of polls and things like that. Definitely mix it up and have lots of different ways of doing things. So use those different facilities. People are obviously on their computers. They've got access to lots of other apps on their whatever device they're using. So bear in mind, they might be just listening to you. So, you know, they're not necessarily just watching exactly what you're doing all the time. We hope they are, but yeah, the distractions are definitely there. So, and that background, like I talked about earlier, be very, very careful about if you're losing people. Make sure you look at the camera when you're talking. That was a big lesson, I think, from the presentation skills webinar from CPD Standards Office. Look at the camera, because if you're looking at other people on the screen, you're not engaging. You want to make that eye contact. So if it makes it easier, think about you're actually talking to somebody specific. So yeah, you need to be thinking differently about how you engage with your audience. Next one. Boundaries, absolutely. So as Daniel did right at the very beginning of this session, switch your camera off, switch your sound off. Ask your audience to do that, because it helps with the bandwidth anyway, but also it creates that sort of terms of engagement, doesn't it? And be very clear about what the comments section is for. Daniel encouraged you to use it, but was very specific around don't be using it to sort of those water cooler moments. So don't be having, I've seen webinars, I've been on webinars where people have literally been having a conversation about something completely different to what the topic of the webinar is about. So up front, talk about what the boundaries are, expectations, switch cameras off, sound off, to help with that engagement side of things, and agree on what the purpose of the comments is for. So set those boundaries. So little bit about ideas generation. So we're going to think about tapping into your inherent creativity. Daniel was talking earlier about left brain, right brain, and whether certain people can be creative or not. We're going to ask that question. See if we can open up. Let's open up the chat. What does creativity mean then? Can anyone just drop in the chat? What is creativity? Your understanding of it. Different ideas from Graham. Here we go. Expanding on a thought, thinking outside the box. That one comes up quite a lot. Taking energy into matter, Patricia. Love that. New to a context, ideas. Developing ideas. Thoughts go wild. Absolutely love it. Yeah, awesome. No boundaries. Awesome. So yeah, think about what is creativity? What does that actually mean? And actually putting it to paper, what do I understand by creativity? Okay, so we've got another poll coming up. Let me just do this next slide. So in how do we generate ideas internally? So we tap into your inherent creativity, and we're going to move a little bit later into what your default creative strategy is. So start thinking about what that might mean. But first of all, I've got another little poll for you to wake you up. We're 20 minutes in or so. Poll 2, if you wouldn't mind, Daniel. So how creative do you consider yourself to be? Do you think you're very, a bit, or somewhat, not very, or not at all? Oh, look at that. You're straight in there.
We've got a lot of creatives, Joe.
We have. That's good. And I think asking that question around what is creativity, it makes you sort of think, well, actually, yeah, I probably am, at least a little bit. Look at that. Brilliant. So 40% very, 52% a bit, and 7% not very, and that should add up to 100. So yeah, we have got some creatives. Awesome. So brilliant. So let's think about what is your default creative strategy. So you all identified that you are at least a little bit. You absolutely are. And what I help sort of clients to do is actually leverage that. I talked about leveraging the brain power. So what is your default creative strategy? You have one. Knowing what it is, you can then tap into it and step out of your comfort zone and actually access something a little bit more. So just have a think about it now. When in the past were you being your most creative? So just take a few seconds to you'll probably be able to identify at least one occasion, or even maybe a series of occasions. Maybe you know exactly where you need to go and what you need to be doing when you're being creative. When I'm not trying to be, Sarah. We'll come to that, absolutely. So think about it, hold it in your mind. When were you being your most creative? Loving these comments. There we go. So here we're going to take you through a nice process so you can actually pull out what your default strategy is. It's one you're going to go to all the time, but knowing what it is, it means you can actually leverage that and do something differently and access some other resources. So where were you? What were you doing? You obviously get the slides after, so this is just to sort of raise your awareness about the process. And any coaches out there will recognize these questions anyway. So again, it's a process to take you through. What were you feeling? What was around you? What resources or tools were you using? What were you thinking? Were you alone or with others? And what was being said? And that's whether you're with other people or on your own. What are you saying to yourself? And how do you know you were being creative? And what stops you from being creative? So if you start to think about your answers to those, you'll be able to pull out your own creative, default creative strategy. It might be that you work best and are most creative when you're on your own in a room. It has to be the curtains have to be open. You have to be able to see the sky. It might be that you're only can be creative when you're with a big group of people and you're sort of bouncing ideas off each other. It might be that you're most creative when you're out walking on your run, or as somebody said earlier, when I'm not thinking about it. It might be that you have those shower moments that are quite common. So working through these questions, thinking about what's happening when I'm creative, getting that all down, it means that we can repeat it. We can repeat those really creative moments, but also we can then leverage it. Definitely in nature, definitely in the shower, absolutely. So look, you've got that one little light bulb that goes off. That's your default creative strategy. But we want to think about, what about all those other light bulbs? You've got that, you know you can do it because you get put in different situations all the time. So, and you creatively work your way through problem solving all the time, but it's maybe not your comfort zone. So what we do, we want to access those. So how do we then step out of the comfort zone to access your underused resources? And once we've done that, make sure that you check in with your vision, values, and purpose. So if you're working with the coach, you'll be working on what that it means for you. We're not going to go into a huge amount of detail here, but whenever you've got an idea, you want to make sure you check in with the vision, values, and purpose. So going back to stepping out your comfort zone, you've pulled out the key themes, you've pulled out the physiology. What's happening? Are you standing up when you're being creative? Are you sitting down in a room? Do you need to be walking? Do you need to be on a beach if you're lucky enough to be near a beach? Do something different then. Do the opposite. I think the one really clear time for me, if you ask me when I was my most creative, is when I was actually on a course, and it was a series of different workshops that completely took me out of my comfort zone, and it was really uncomfortable. But actually what came out of it, I was able to access all these other resources that I'd just never used. But the growth you get from doing that, and just the different ideas that you get from doing that, just amazing. So yeah, step out of that comfort zone. Distraction, we talked about the shower moment. So yeah, if you're overthinking something, just stop thinking about it and go for a walk. When you're driving, I'm sure somebody's come up with that. When you're driving, that, you know, you're concentrating on your conscious mind is thinking about your driving, but actually in your subconscious is ticking over problem solving. It's always at it in the background. So distraction. So yeah, do something different. Even something as silly as stand on your head. Sometimes considering a problem or considering an idea, literally look at it from a completely different perspective. Simple as standing on your head. Sometimes it can open up some different sort of ideas, and you just see things very differently, quite literally. So think about that. And then just another thing about being in the discovery frame. So just don't have an idea in mind where you want to go, metaphorically. Just be open to whatever happens during a day, for instance. So if you know you want to have an idea, just exist in that day with an open mind and seeing what comes to you, and just being open to what might come to you, being in that discovery frame. it kind of changes the gear on what you're seeking to achieve. You're kind of open to, you're not putting any boundaries on what you're expecting. It's opening up those expectations. So yeah, definitely step out your comfort zone. You'll be surprised what comes back. And then whatever ideas you start to come out with, make sure you do check in with your vision, values and purpose. So for those of you that have already got those, make sure you always check in with those. You want them to be aligned. So externally, so here I'm not going to be teaching you to suck eggs. This is probably nothing new, but if there's a little nugget in here, all well and good. So ideas. So this is sort of information and ideas externally. You've got your internal. What else can we do? Literally listen. People moan all the time. Listen to what the issues are. Also listen to experts, create focus groups. You've got what's going on in meetings, obviously. Conferences happen less now, but maybe virtual conferences. Just literally listen, networking, have that open mind, have that discovery frame, and just listen to what people are talking about. Might be stating the obvious, but if it's your first step, it's not a bad step to start with. Next one, another very simple idea, just ask. So here it might be just literally speaking to somebody on the street. What issues are you actually having? You might be able to see some sort of gap there. And you're talking about sort of the pain points and the trigger points, and I'm not going to talk about the business aspect of this, but literally just ask people, what's really annoying you? What would make things a lot easier for you? And they will tell you. And again, you can use things, we'll come to social media later, but you can actually sort of ask people on things like LinkedIn. You've got the LinkedIn webinar that CPD Standards Office created as well. So we'll have those links when we send out the slides for this. Next one. Sample. So what's everybody else doing? So do go and attend other people's webinars. What's everyone else doing? And sometimes, especially when the degree of appropriateness is really important, which it has been during this time, it's been such an, as we said earlier, unprecedented times. To have that check and measure around what's appropriate is so important. So sometimes it's really key. So you've got to act fast, yeah, but also sometimes standing back is how you stand out, because there's so much of the same out there. It's about tapping in what's setting you apart and making you different. So do sample what maybe competitors are doing or what other people's doing, and what customers are asking for maybe, but it's sampling the market really. Next one, survey. So you've got SurveyMonkey. You can literally do and ask those questions using different surveys. There's all sorts of software out there to help you with those. You're asking direct questions. What do people want? CPD Standards Office obviously asked you at the beginning, what sort of webinars do you want? Databases. Lots of information out there. You've got sort of a whole series, a different extent. You've got something that's mentioned every day, Office of National Statistics, can't even say it, Office of National Statistics. Lots of information there that you might want to tap into in terms of thinking about widening your income stream. But there's also a little gem, particularly for training sessions, called Answer the Public. If you go to the website, Answer the Public, it's collating together everything that people are searching on Google for. So if you've got your own niche, you can actually go and see the sorts of questions people are asking within those sort of criteria. If you then go and create a session around that, you've got a nice little audience already set up. So yeah, Answer the Public website, great little nugget. Use those databases. Social media, absolutely. What are people talking about? I don't really have to say much to that, but check in. What are they talking about? Trends. So yeah, so tapping into trends. We had obviously the vegan trend for a long time. We've now got a lot of people doing sort of mental health sessions and change, how, you know, managing change and how to be productive when working from home. So, you know, monitor what's going out there. Like I said earlier on, keep an eye on what's going out there. It's that stay alert. I know we've been told to stay alert, but do stay alert. Look at what's going on out there, and tap into your own specialty. As Amanda said earlier on, make whatever you're really good at, really hone that and actually offer that, because you've got that credibility there. But keep trends in mind. PESTLE. Hopefully you all know what PESTLE is. Little reaction, thumbs up. People know what PESTLE is? No, sorry. Okay, we've got a no, so I will tell you. So PESTLE, so that's a nice little tool when you're thinking about what it's kind of an external check and measure. So it stands for political, economic, sociological, technological, legal and environmental. And whenever you're thinking about putting anything out on the market there, if you go through that check and measure, it's like horizon scanning, what's happening, what's going to be coming up in the future. So it's really nice to be able to sort of frame that thinking. So yeah, do your PESTLE check if you're thinking of putting anything out there. And it's also useful to think in those terms. We call it like a temperature check. Say it again. Yes, I'll say it again. PESTLE, so it's political, economic, sociological, technological, legal and environmental. So if you do a sort of a think in those terms, is it appropriate for me to be putting this session out when I think about what's going on for those aspects? You know, political, massive at the moment. And when I talk about temperature check, I don't mean sort of in terms of degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, what is the general consensus? You can check in with social media here. What's going on? What is the general consensus around what's happening? So do a check and measure around that. But yeah, PESTLE check, really important. Check externally. And then, yeah, your legal. Whenever you do your surveys, don't forget your GDPR. You've got to make sure that you're monitoring those, keeping the privacy of anybody that you're using the data from. And, you know, you've got your trademark, intellectual property. So don't forget about things like those, copyright. So when you're pulling together your sessions, these are all sorts of sources of information. Okay. Final. Then what? So you've got all your ideas. What do you then do? So a nice little tool, you probably heard of it, but it's really, really useful to use. So we use spatial anchors. So very, very separate areas that you allocate to a particular thinking style. Each unique physical space we've got a little diagram here. You've got the dreamer. So you've come up with all your ideas. You then move on to the realist. So creates the plan, and we'll just have the next slide just covers what a plan is to make that idea come to fruition. And then you move to a different area and you've got the critic, edits the plan and checks it for flaws of logic or what might not work. And you go around these different areas and check your ideas according to the different thinking styles within these spatial anchors. And they have to be very, very separate, and you have to be very disciplined. You can only think about these parameters in terms of your idea, and you keep moving around, making sure that each of the areas is happy with the development of the idea and the plan that you're coming together. And when everybody's happy, when each of the areas is content, you then got your nice plan to move forward. So that's something that sort of coaches use, Disney creative strategy. It does come from Disney, as in Mickey Mouse Disney, and they said that people that work with him in his company, they never knew who was going to turn up to the meeting. It was going to be the dreamer, the realist, or the critic, so they could never predict who was going to come out. So it's a really, really useful tool, but you've got to be really disciplined around the spatial anchors and separate them. There we go. So you'll know what an action plan looks like, but I will encourage you right now to start writing some stuff down. What will I do? Why will this benefit, or why this will benefit? How will I do it? The specific steps. And how will I know I've been successful? So you'll know this is how to create an action plan, but I will encourage you to start writing it down. And as I said, be specific. Don't let yourself off. Put the detail in, put the date in, put the time in when you're going to do it. Okay, so start writing that action plan. Look at the chat. I'm going to do a little poll. So whether you start writing it down now or after the session, really start committing to taking those actions. Date and time it, then you know you're going to be taking it forward. And there we go. Please do connect with me. I'd love to hear how you're getting on with all your ideas generation.
Brilliant. Hello. Thank you so much, Joe, for that. Thank you so much. Hi, welcome back, Amanda. So thank you guys. If you do, we've got a bunch of questions to get through. If you do want to keep them coming in, we are monitoring those just coming in just now. Before we do go on to taking those questions, I did just want to get out another poll. We are going to be obviously just going along with the theme of today. Today is all about obviously pivoting and also building out your portfolio. So just going along with the theme of today, we did want to offer a discount for people that wanted to really consider starting to build out their portfolio. So all the members that are on right now, we are going to give a discount, a 10% discount up until the 30th of June. That you can take advantage on. So that's a 10% discount. I'm going to put out a poll just now, and also it's going to be a discount available as well for people who are not yet with us, but they would like to join us. And they're also going to get that 10% up until the 30th of June. So that poll's going out just now. Just hit a yes if you want someone to be in contact with you regarding that. That's going out now. I'll leave it up for a little while. So you can just respond to that in your good time.
Can I just add something there, actually, Daniel? I meant to say, actually, I've not given any sort of specific ideas or business advice today. It's all about how to sort of leverage your brain power. But actually, book in time with Daniel, because he's superb around how to market your ideas and how to sort of do.
Thank you.
You're gonna make me blush.
I meant to say that. No, he's absolutely awesome. I just around how to get the best out of the sessions that you pull together. You know, I'm hopefully helping you with content, but actually marketing it and developing it further. Book that time in with Daniel. He's superb.
That was actually going to be my next plug. But thank you for doing that, because I didn't want to boost myself up too much. So yes, that time is available for all of our members, that consultation call, where we go through 5 key points with you. So we look at the needs, the purpose, and the need of the training that you're put together. Again, if you want to find out a bit more about what that means, get in contact. The contact details are going to be going out to you all. We look at the delivery format. So how is the training going to be delivered online? We also look at the marketing proposition. and the tech resources required for you to actually deliver that, and the pricing as well. So how would the pricing change in accordance to that too? So yes, please do get in contact. That's going to be coming out as well afterwards to you all in the post-webinar pack. So yes, I think we are ready to move on to some questions. Are you both ready?
Yeah, absolutely. And just picking up on Daniel's point there, we've also got, as a continuation really of these webinars that we've sort of developed creatively, quite a lot of member-only resources that we're starting to put together now. So keep your eye out, because over the summer months we've got some podcasts we're recording, we've got updated fact sheets and advice, and also some member-only training sessions as well. So yeah, keep your eye out for that. Now, in the chat, whilst Joe was talking, there was a suggestion from somebody about, could we just run an open ideas session for the chat, for people to just really connect and offer their ideas and things like that. So I said, well, what we could do is either extend today's session, which is perhaps on reflection not the best idea, or we could just run a separate open session. So we will, it seems to be favoured that we'll do that. So we'll just put together a completely free thinking session overall for everybody to connect together. And there's also been a couple of requests as well. Could we share everybody's details and get everybody to connect to one another who have attended today? So we can do that. I think if you just put your name in the chat now, if you don't want your details to be shared, then we can draw together a list. The other thing we may well do, thinking about it, is maybe put a group together on LinkedIn for you all to join and pick up your discussions there. So thank you so much for that. Now, there has been a comment here about that you found the ideas a little bit too basic. There's been a couple of people commenting on that, and I'm sorry to hear that, because I did think that Joe came up with some really good points there. For me, some of the really good angles, Joe, that you picked up on and discussed were, you know, getting into your most creative space. For me, when I started the CPD Standards Office, I had been an academic and consultant, and I wasn't about, you know, naturally to go into the entrepreneurial space. So what I personally found was, you know, my creative time was, I just used to take my dog for a walk, long walk at lunchtime on my own with no phone on me, just some post-it notes and a pen. And that's how I kept the ideas kind of flowing and let things come to me. And then the other thing I did, which you highlighted as well, Joe, was I joined a group for people that were entrepreneurs running a business. And it was fantastic. It was a network called Vistage. And one day a month, you take the day out to just work on your business. And sometimes you are in the most uncomfortable, challenging environment that you've ever found yourself in. You're getting some really hard questions from people that are in your group. But actually taking yourself out of your day-to-day running of being in your business and building your ideas and things, and actually sitting with people who are all in the non-competing space, by the way, but just learning about, you know, what other people are doing and their challenges that they're facing, but also taking some really hard questions as to, like, why are you doing that? What is the point of you doing that, Amanda? You know, it was really, really useful. So yeah, so that for me were just like the key points that really resonated with me, Joe. So thank you for that. So over to you, Daniel.
Can I come in on that, actually? Yeah. What I would say is if some people found it quite simple, then I've done my job, because my job is to ask simple questions, and the difficulty is for that reflective practice, so for people to think about the answers to those questions. So I would encourage those, just sort of think about the answers to some of those really simple questions, and see what personal enlightenment you get. That's what I would say. But yeah, that's where the sort of real learning comes, is when you actually apply those really simple questions to your own situation.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a really good point. That's a really good point. A couple of people are saying there, please don't share my details in the chat. That's absolutely no problem at all. We'll monitor that very carefully, and we'll think through about how we're going to connect you all together. So, you know, it may not be that we send an email list out, but we do start a LinkedIn group. Anyway, I'm really conscious of time. So Daniel, over to you to take a couple of questions, and then we'll wrap up today's session.
Okay, we have a question from Angela. What is your thoughts on the length of virtual sessions? What seems to work best for the delegates? I have some input on that one. So basically what I would say is that it really depends on how the format that you're going to be going forward with. So for example, like today's session, it was quite one-dimensional in terms of, like, that's how all of our webinars are. They're all one-dimensional. It's a presenter talking to a group of people. It's like a lecture hall. In those cases, I would say keep them fairly short. Don't go over an hour and a half of those, because attention spans will wane off quite easily. But if they're going to be way more interactive and you're going to have people's faces on, like I can see Joe and Amanda right now, for example, and I feel quite relaxed and everything like that. So if you're going to be doing something like that, the sessions can be longer, especially if you're going to be breaking people up into breakout rooms, a lot of activities, questions flying around, hand raising, and so forth. They can go on for longer. You can look at doing something for around 3 hours or so in that format. So it really does depend on how you're going to be using the resource online. But like I said, if it's going to be in today's kind of format, try to keep it at a maximum of an hour and a half there. Did you have anything to add, guys?
Yeah, I would say that you could always break them down into sort of, I don't know, 45-minute sessions as well. So instead of it being one long webinar, you can break it up and offer it at different times. And unlike what you go into in your one-to-ones, Daniel, you can have the live or the on-demand ones as well, which is really useful. You can really break them down then and have specific topics in shorter 30-minute segments, so people can then just access what they're interested in. So yeah, it's but keep them short, keep them simple, I would say.
Brilliant. Lawrence Martin asks, is it best to use a virtual background? Depends where you live. It depends, really. I mean, we've all got our backgrounds up for you all today. I don't think anyone should be embarrassed. I think the backgrounds look fine. However, if your background is going to be a bit messy, it would be preferable, I would say, to take advantage of that feature and get that virtual background up. They have got a few cool ones. You can even be in space on the moon or something like that. So yeah, definitely take advantage of those if needed. Does anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, just think of your distractions, really. You don't want lots going on in the background that people are going to be naturally drawn to. So yes, simple the better. So those virtual ones are even better. Okay. Make them on brand though.
Yes. We've got another.
Just to add a point there, I think for me, I get so distracted. I just, I look at my email and something pops up, and then I go back to what I was doing, and then something else happens, etc., etc. For me, what I do when I'm really, really focusing on something, and particularly now when I'm being sort of creative, as it were, is I actually switch off. I take off my web browser, and I can't see my email at all. And then I also put my phone on silent, I've got a cover on my phone, so I literally shut that away so I can't see any other messages coming in, and I can just focus, because the distraction of email and social media pings and WhatsApp pings and phone calls, you know, it's a really distracting world out there, even when you're remote working, you know, and you've not got the normal office distractions around you. So for me, that's a big thing. I'm really conscious now that I am an easily distractible person. And I think a lot of trainers and a lot of you that I know and have worked with, and, you know, are good friends and colleagues, you know, we are quite extrovert people. And a part of that is that we're easily distracted by new things that are happening. So definitely keep aware of what pulls your attention away from what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. We've got a question from Stephen here. Is it best to deliver workshop or training live, or can it be pre-recorded where delegates have to register and sign into a platform? So is it basically, the question is it better to do live training or pre-recorded on-demand training? I'm happy to kick that one off.
Go on then, Daniel, you kick
so
that one off.
You're an expert on this.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I've got a good idea about it. So basically, it really depends on the content of your training and how you think it's going to be received by the delegate. If you believe that the delegate will be able to consume and understand the content on an on-demand version, then that obviously frees up your time and it allows it to kind of be a more passive income stream. However, if it's going to be something where you feel that the delegate's really going to need some interaction and some engagement with you, then it's definitely profitable for you to do the live session where you can answer questions and you can go a bit more into depth, and it will be a bit more tailored towards the delegate's needs from having that live attribute to it. So it really depends on what you think, how the delegate's going to receive the information there.
Yeah, just picking up on that point, Daniel, you know, it might be worth sort of asking your clients, you know, doing a little survey, just, you know, 2 questions, 3 questions on it, and actually ask them, you know, would you like a recorded session or would you like a live session? I mean, certainly, you know, running live sessions is interesting, even if it's just, you know, a webinar about the training course that you're going to run, and, you know, seeing who attends and the questions that end up in the chat, and you know, that can give you some really good ideas about how you're going to focus that course, whether you do run it as live or as recorded.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of my 2 pennyworth on that one.
And just finally, I mean, you nothing saying that you can't obviously bring the both together. Like Joe mentioned in the flipped classroom, you could actually have something that goes out before or after as an on-demand piece, because you know, okay, before they come into the live session, I need them to know this basic set of information that they will be able to get understanding from this on-demand session. So you can send that out to them prior, so they've got that foundation knowledge for the live session there. That's
a really good point.
Another question we'll take 2 more questions. We've got a bunch of them, but I'm just scrolling through to see which ones we're going to take now. We've got another one from...
So it's a good one from Stephen.
That's what I was going to say, Ashmore,
Yeah. So is there demand for people paying to watch sessions like these that have been recorded? Yes, there is. Absolutely. You know, there is a boom in online learning at the moment, and people are paying. They're paying £10, they're paying £100, they're paying £1,000. So yeah, by all means. I mean, we've made ours free of charge. People have been emailing us and asking us how much does it cost to attend these sessions, and you know, one of the big things that I personally am passionate about is making sure that there's as much information out there in terms of how to be great trainers, great coaches as possible. But by all means, put some of your content behind paywalls and just see, you know, that there is definitely a demand, and people will part very easily now with their credit card details. if they think that, you know, this is a topic that they'd like to learn. I mean, the other thing you can do is obviously write a course and upload it onto a platform such as Udemy or Coursera, which have, you know, 5-10 million audiences ready to go and receive your content. The only thing with those platforms, and we'll put a little bit about that in our fact sheet that we'll attach with this webinar, is that they do control the price. So whilst you might set the price for your course at $200, Udemy might have a day where they just sell all of your courses for $10. So that's, you know, the weighing up whether you go to a platform that's got a ready market on it, or you put your own onto something like Thinkific or Teachable. So yeah, by all means.
Then we've got another one from Femina Lawson. She asks how to make web-based training presentations look sharp. I think you've done a great job today, Jo. So how did you do it?
It's that, keep it simple. It really is. Keep it simple, make it attractive, make it on brand. Got to be careful in terms of what platform you use, because sometimes the functionality doesn't work. So, you know, definitely check in whether, you know, your animations work, because sometimes you don't, and you literally just get the slide. You can't bring different aspects of it out depending what platform you're on. Certainly sort of more the academic ones, it's literally each slide as it is. But testing them out, but yeah, just think about who your audience is, what they are looking for from the session. Does it need to be content loaded, content driven, or does it just need to be, you know, engaging and attractive and just information, or just a discussion point? Sometimes it's, you know, we have, you know, if you're going to use the breakout rooms, it might be just sort of questions. So yeah, just think about the purpose of the session and make it attractive and keep it simple.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And also some of the really interesting sort of pivots we've seen are some trainers just not using slides at all. You know, they're just delivering to camera. They have got a kind of, you can download a teleprompter apps now, very, very cheap, and so they put an iPad or something, like I'm pointing now, but like behind the camera, and they're just literally talking to camera like we are at the moment, with no slides at all, and explaining everything to kind of recreate, you know, as if you were just looking at a trainer in a classroom with no slides. So don't get too hung up on the slides. And the only other point I would say, sorry to talk over you, Jo, is do go back and have a look at Barnaby Winter's branding webinar that we did a couple of weeks ago, because it is really important, if you are using slides and other resources, that they are, as you say, Jo, on brand, and you've really, really honed, you know, the online learning experience to align to your overall brand that you're using, what your website looks like, etc., etc. That is very, very important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, please do take advantage of all of our webinars. They're all up on our YouTube channel, CPDSO. So please do take advantage of those. We've done obviously several now, so there's a lot. Like you said, you'll be able to find Barnaby when there's one up there, and Jo's will be following soon as well. Final question: how to manage the chat section? So I did today. We did have it open fully, so it was open to the public to talk. With Zoom, I can say that they do have options. So if I wanted to shut everyone down now, I could shut everyone down, and they could only send messages to me, for example, and no one else. But then there's options where you can have it, where you can allow them to send it publicly, like you can all, to everyone, and to have it where they can send it to privately as well. So we haven't got it so you can all communicate privately, but we have got it so you can all communicate publicly. So those options are on Zoom, and I'm sure they're on many of the other webinar platforms as well. So that's quite easy to manage. And then as well, it's just about being vocal at the beginning of the session on how you want it to be used too.
Yeah, definitely. So set those boundaries.
And if you're running multiple sessions, what I would say is just experiment. So experiment with having the chat off, experiment with having the chat on and allowing questions, experiment with setting really clear guidelines like we try to do to sort of keep it on track, and just kind of see how best, you know, it runs. If you are running a chat function continuously, then very much recommend you having a moderator or somebody else who's actually sort of managing it and answering the questions sort of as they go, just to kind of enable you as the trainer to keep completely focused on the content. That is the only thing when you've got a chat function running and lots of comments and questions being made. You do need a second pair of hands, and they don't have to obviously be in the same room with you. Mind you, if they are, they've got to be 2 meters away at the moment anyway, but they can be dialing in from somewhere else. And then there's just a little question here, and I think we should wrap up. Can I link a digital workbook with a recorded webinar from Stephen? Yes, absolutely. A lot of the online training platforms give you the option to not only upload videos and PowerPoints and things like that, but also digital workbooks and PDFs that you can download, etc., etc. So that's normally a standard function on most online learning platforms.
Definitely. I mean, even now, if I wanted to share a file with you, or for example, a digital workbook, I could actually go ahead and do that just now. So you can also do that on live sessions as well.
Okay.
Fantastic. I mean, thank you guys for all of the questions and participation. And we did get those results back for the last poll. If you do want to just, if you have changed your mind and you do want to get involved in that, just that's still up, so you can just click on that now. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Joe, for bringing us through that. It was really impressive, and I really enjoyed it. And Amanda, thank you as well for your piece at the beginning. And thank you guys all again for joining us wherever you are. Have a great afternoon or morning or night. And yes, we'll be back again next week with another weekly webinar from CPDSO. So please do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, thanks, everybody. And we will definitely also set up a free-flowing ideas session as in addition to next week as well. So thank you so much.
Definitely. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.